What do you do when your bandsaw blade breaks? Hey, so we are taking a short break from making baits today, and we are going to make some tools for making baits. So as you saw, I had a bandsaw blade break on me, and we're going to take that blade and make it into something useful. Today is a detail carving knife. It's a real small, fine blade, and I'll be using that for bait making, mainly for carving in details like the gills and other details that I want to carve into. So for the handle on this knife, I'm going to be using oak. Oak is a good strong wood. I don't have to worry about it breaking, and it's not soft, so it won't give around the blade. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on how I sanded everything out, but basically just using the curves of the sander to get some of the odd curved spots on my handle. Now, as you can see, I already have carving knives, but the carving knives I have are actually rather long knives. They're great for doing bigger projects, but for doing the very fine detail on some of these smaller baits that I make, I'm wanting just a little bit finer blade, and that's what I make with this one. Now we come to the blade making, and I'm simply just going to break off a piece of this bandsaw blade. It's a pretty stiff steel, so it actually breaks pretty easy just by folding a couple times. Now it's not real thick, so it does break easy. Now the first thing I'm going to do with it is actually sand off the teeth on the blade. You want to be careful doing this. You definitely want to have some safety glasses on and keep your fingers away, and this will get hot. Now I'm simply shaping this blade with the sander, just trying to get it roughly to shape what I want. I'm going to have a curved tip because I want a fine tip for carving. And then I'm also going to slant the back for mounting. So you may be wondering how I'm going to mount this. I'm actually going to cut it at a slant, and when I put it in there, I'm going to show you here, it's going to sit in there kind of at a slant. So when I cut the slot in there, I'm going to cut it at an angle so I'm not cutting my handle in half. So as you can see here, I have a slant cut in the back of that blade, so when I do cut the handle at a slant, those two will sit together and make the blade relatively flush. And here I'm just trying to figure out the depths that I'm going to cut that slant to. So I'm actually going to use the blade itself to kind of figure out the angle that I need to cut at. Then I'll extrapolate that out with a straight edge. Or in this case, a paint stir stick. So basically when I cut this out, I have the front marked to how deep I need to go there, and the back marked how deep I need to go into the handle. And when I cut in with my saw, I'll just cut straight down to both of those marks are flush with the saw. Now I'm using a hacksaw on this because a handsaw is going to be much better to cut this with. So it's a lot safer than trying to stick it in the bandsaw sideways. Also, it's going to cut a little bit slower, so I make sure I stop where I need it. That works. Test fitting the blade. I'm going to glue it in with just using a 5-minute epoxy. Now you may notice this epoxy turns a different color. That's simply because I had stain on the stick, and it dyed the epoxy a little bit of color, which actually worked out well for this blade. And I'm going to use the blade itself to kind of get that epoxy shoved down in there, especially since it fits. Here I'm just going to coat the handle in polyurethane just to give it a little more protection. Alright, so I've already got the edge put on this. I was just going to walk you through it because it took a little while to put the edge on. Didn't really want to make you suffer through sharpening this. I just hand sharpened this, or put the edge on it, and I used a sharpening stone. Now this one has a 320 grit as the coarse and a 760 grit as the fine. So it's and this is diamond, so it lasts a long time. You can use it wet or dry. So what I basically did is I just took it and sharpened it. Now when I'm initially getting the blade going, I just went back and forth. I'm not going to use this side right now because I've already got a blade on it, or an edge on it. But what I do to get the final sharpen is just kind of go down, and you want to keep it all the same, all the same angle as you're going. You don't want to change that angle. You want it sloped back quite a bit because this is a carving knife, so you don't really want a real broad edge. You want a real fine, sharp edge, so it cuts through a little smoother than a normal knife. But yeah, so you just get to the angle that you want, and then you just sharpen it. And what you don't want to do is wobble it while you're going, because that'll bevel your edge, and that'll give you a bad cut, basically. So when you're cutting and you have a beveled edge, instead of coming off in nice peels like that's doing, it'll just like chunk off. It won't cut and grab in. It'll just kind of, glaze off of it, something like that. I'm just kind of forcing it to do that, but if you have a rounded edge, it doesn't cut very good. So this is how it cuts. It does a pretty good job. So that's basically how I'm going to be using this, mostly with the tip. Cuts in just fine. Like I said, it's mostly for detail work. What's nice about a small blade like this is I can get a lot of control right by it. I don't have to worry about cutting myself as much. That's why I designed the handle the way I did. I like the thick grip right here. That helps you hold on to it. But the little concave here and here allows me to basically work it either direction and keep me from sliding my finger off into the blade. And this blade, I did tilt it down just a little bit. It gives me more of a chipper's blade. So far it works really good. Cross gained. And yeah, it has a little bit of flex to it. I don't know if you saw it flexing there. Don't want to flex it too much, but works pretty good. And I mean, that's just made out of a broken bandsaw blade. So this was basically a free knife to me because it was scrap wood. The only thing I really paid for was epoxy, but I already had that sitting around because I do baits. But so that's the finished blade. It should work just fine. But I can get it sharper if I wanted to. But yeah, that's where it's at right now. And I'll probably be using this. You'll probably see this off and on in my videos. I've got another bandsaw blade, but it comes out of a mill, and the blade is much thicker. And that one I have plans on making a curb gouge for it, so I'll show you that later once I figure out how I want to go about making that. But yeah, so making your own carving tools out of a broken bandsaw blade, totally doable. The steel in it's pretty nice because it's a springy steel. Spring steel, like bandsaw blades, they actually have a good edge retention. They get a very sharp edge is the big thing. So definitely recommend it, especially if you break a blade. Makes kind of a good thing out of a bad thing. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.